Robb here with Glen Matlock talking about his new single, Another Adventures, classic sort of Glen anthem. It's almost like an updated version of Pretty Vacant for this current moment.
Yeah, maybe that's one way of looking at it. It's my kind of take on where we're at the moment, politically and sociologically, and the divided UK, and how we've been led down a garden path by a bunch of wrong uns, I think. And, I think in this climate, I don't know anybody can sit and write a love song, really. It's an abrogation of responsibility to not reflect what's going on around you. And maybe as I'm getting a bit older, I'm kind of getting a little bit more, what's the word? Don't know, hipper to older people. Maybe like I was never a big Dylan fan, but I could always appreciate him. And in fact, I'll never go and see him live again because he looks like he don't want to be there. But I mean, some of his songs are, in fact, now, if I want to do another song, I might even do Rainy Day Women, everybody must get stoned.
Yeah.
They're stone you when you're walking across the floor, they're stone you when you're walking through the door,
It's a great song.
Yeah, so, there's an element of that to it somehow. I kind of got hip to a few things, and even going back through the sands of time, just all the late 60s thing and the hippie movement and them railing against the Vietnam War. I think if you keep sniping, I really love that guy, Steve Bray, who's in Parliament every day. And in fact, I sent him a copy of the single, and it's up online. Him and his missus and some of his mates, they took pictures of politicians and made them into posters on sticks, and they're playing head on a stick outside Parliament. It's kind of great. Now, it's a bit daft, but on the other end, I think anybody, you've got to be like gnats. You just got to keep sniping away and biting at their ankles until they've had enough of it, which I think is slowly beginning to happen. And the song is from an album that's coming out. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to it yet, but called Consequences Coming. And I can see that they're going to come right unstuck. Now, where it's going to lead us, don't know, but it can't be any worse than where we are now, So,
I mean, as you got older, you got more kind of political, or has it always been there,
I think it's always been there. Maybe perhaps I'm just explaining myself a little bit better now, but I don't want to come across as kind of, Tarek Ali or Che Guevara, but it's just like an element to it. And I think the other thing is, somebody asked me the other day to sum up the song. I think there's some good tunes there, some great musicians on the album. El Slick again. I've got Hot Eye, that Japanese guy who wrote Kill Bill. He gets on the track. Not all of it, but a lot of the bass is Norman Watt-Roy. I've always loved his playing. Clem's on a couple of tracks. Chris Masto, Neil X, James Allowell, all good players. So there's all that going on, some good tunes. But somebody asked me to sum up the single, and I think it's a spleen venting toe tapper.
yeah. That's going to.
So if you can keep writing spleen venting toe tappers, there you go, and then you can move on to something else.
You seem to have settled very easily into the elder statesman role. It's almost like you found your space now, whereas before, for years, you've done a lot of stuff. I mean, loads of stuff, but it always seemed like you hadn't quite found or occupied your space. Whereas you seem to very comfortably fitted into one now.
Maybe perhaps I don't care anymore. Perhaps I just do it anyway, and maybe a few more people are starting to come round to my way of thinking a little bit. Maybe. I think I've always done pretty much the same kind of thing. Sometimes you have a peak and sometimes you have a bit of a trough, but it's only kind of through working through it. I like what Picasso said about his art. He said, ideas don't just come, and you don't get ideas by working at it, but by working at it, sometimes that's when you get the best idea. So you got to keep at it. You're in bands and things, and you can spend all day long recording something. It don't, it's all right, but it needs something else. And that last idea just comes in the last half hour in the studio, just through kind of being in that kind of space. Sometimes, not always, but if you weren't there, if you'd gone home early, it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, last time we spoke, you said you see yourself as a working musician. So you play with the Faces, you do the Blondie tour. But this seems like more than that. There seems like an urgency about what you're doing now, and an urgency that maybe hasn't been there if your own kind of music since the Pistols and the Rich Kids.
Well, I think I'm getting on a bit now. If I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. Um, I'm I think what spurs me, I'm not desperate, it's the wrong word, but I am kind of desperate to not be just known as somebody who did something kind of cool 45 years ago. It's a real double edged sword, that, and it's a pretty cool thing to be involved with. I didn't necessarily get all the right plaudits at the time. People had come round to my way of thinking with that a little bit. It's kind of cool, but if you can write a song, you can write a song, and then you've got a bit more life experience to write something about. I mean, people say to me, they go to music college and all, and that's kind of cool. You can learn about how PRS works and, how streaming works, which I don't really know, and it's a bit of a learning curve putting this record out. But I really think, one of the best things that I ever did about learning music, you can learn the guitar in your spare room, enough to be in a band. But one of the best things I ever did was go to art college, and you met loads of people who had loads of ideas, and you bring that back to your music. And if you're just learning about music, what you bring into it, it makes it a bit different. That's the way I look at it.
And is that part of the good thing about touring with other bands? You just done that huge Blondie tour. Playing with other people. Does that bring it? Speaking in Dylan
Yeah,
terms, does that
a
bring it all
little
back
bit,
home?
I had to learn 25 songs and then maybe not do all of them with Blondie, and everybody writes a song a different way. So you kind of get inside the head of somebody else's way of going about things. You might, I learnt Denny, and we didn't end up doing it, right? And they didn't want to do it for something. Well, Debbie didn't want to do it for some reason. But you know what? It's got the beginning, there's the first verse and chorus, and there's a key change straight for the second verse, all through the rest of the song. And I'd never do that. You might do it at the last, for the last verse or the last chorus or something like that. But just little things like that you pick up on them. You don't necessarily nick them. You think, oh, that's an idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of curious. A lot of musicians, as they get older, they kind of lose the muse. The more they know, the less they seem to be able to do it. And I don't even create. A lot of your contemporaries now don't release new music at all, do they?
Well, I think perhaps because they feel kind of economically they're banging their head against a brick wall. It's people want to hear all the hits. Yeah, I can kind of see that, and I'm kind of almost a little bit guilty of that. I'm going to do this Iggy Pop Lust for Life tour, but only because Tony Sales was supposed to do it, and for some reason he couldn't make it over, and they were stuck. So I'm helping them out. It's playing with Clam and some other people, but it's almost like a covers band with knobs on. That'd be all right,
Yeah.
And it's a job. People always forget about music. It's a job, and you have to kind of get things while they're going to a certain extent. And I don't think I would have done it if my album wasn't ready to come out and there was a little gap in it. But I'd rather be out and about playing with my stuff. But then on the other hand, the Blondie stuff, I doubt if I'm going to get to headline a festival in Mexico City, which is what we're going to do in March. And as much as I like coming to Manchester and playing the band on the wall or somewhere like that,
Yeah.
you know
Stadium
what I mean?
Mexico. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's a matter of just doing lots of different projects, then, isn't it, to be a working musician?
And there it is. I was talking to Clem about this. He's always playing with different people. Um, why not? Really? But then people get a bit confused. But I think, I've been getting quite a bit of press on this album, so that's kind of taking care of itself. And if it lands in the right place, then I will be able to go and tour a bit better. Bottom line is, I support Queen's Park Rangers. They're rarely on the TV. There's fuck all else on. And even when they are on the TV, they lose. So I might as well go and do a gig, you know.
Yeah, it's like being a Blackpool fan, but a luxury
Yeah,
version. At least you're
yeah,
higher up
yeah.
the table. So, I mean, are you surprised by the amount of press you got for this? It's more than you normally get because your records sort of come out sort of.
Well, I have now Cooking Vinyl behind it a bit more, and I've managed to sort of get quite a good press team together. That's all helped. Maybe if I'd done that last time around, that would have done. I think my last couple of albums, I'm proud of them, and they're going to be re-released again. So that's kind of cool. I don't know, what was the question again?
Just about the level of profile you got now, and I think do you think because you actually worked out to use social networking pretty well, I mean, your Instagram and Facebook accounts are actually pretty on it. I mean, a lot of people, older musicians, are pretty rubbish at doing that. They just put up their next gig, but you're quite playful with it, aren't you?
Yeah, I try to be. You know, if somebody writes to me and they've taken the trouble to do it, the least I can do is send them back a thumbs up emoji or a smiley face. Or I particularly like this one. There's some people go, "How dare you go on about Brexit?" And I do that one, that goes,
Yeah.
"Oh,"
Yeah.
and I've been using that quite a lot lately. Yeah, and again, there's that much on the telly. It does suck you in social media a little bit, and you have to kind of like no, but you do it. So,
Yeah,
but
which is just
people appreciate it. And you pick up fans and people from all corners of the globe. I don't know why there's corners of the globe because it's round and it's not square. But you
some
know what
people
I
think it has corners.
mean? Yeah,
Do you think?
yeah. It's like one of those things that bring us our corners back.
Do you think because of Pistol as well, that's kind of raised your profile, even though you actually got the worst, you got dealt the worst card in that? I thought.
Yeah, I was sorely disappointed in that, to be honest. After having quite a few long, meaningful discussions with Danny Boyle, I felt a bit shafted. Perhaps it was my own daft fault. But on the other hand, I thought it was important Steve got to make his story because he was the bloke, in the words of Ernie Wise, he's the bloke what formed it. And I think if we'd waited for John to do his one, the rest of the three of us wouldn't got a look in at all. So
I mean, yeah, I actually thought it was excellent. Apart from you, I thought you got. I
I
don't
didn't mind the
understand
bloke
why.
playing me. It's the script and the whole bit about me leaving the band and a whole episode about me being sacked when that's just not true. So anyway, the last deep, meaningful conversation I had with Danny Boyle was I went to a red carpet thing in Los Angeles, mainly to hang out with Steve. And Danny came up, "Oh, hey Glenn, how you doing? You're a cunt." So that's pretty deep and meaningful. He was like, "Oh," and then there was supposed to be a meal in his honour at the Polo Lounge at the Beverly Hills Hotel, which is pretty swanky, and he didn't turn up. So I like to think he was sitting in his hotel room with a cheese and onion sandwich from 7-Eleven with the corners turned up.
Yeah. Somewhere in the
You
middle.
know, it's not big or clever, but a bit of revenge is sweet somehow. But he's probably moved on to the next thing and don't care. But
I thought he did a good job of it. Like I said, apart from your bit, I don't get
well,
why
do you
they've
know
done
what? I
such
saw Cookie
a
yesterday.
flimsy
We had a
version of
coffee.
it.
He's not that happy about it, really.
He
We
came out of it
both
okay.
agreed that the real story, without the Hollywood dressing up, is probably more true. Was probably more interesting and gritty than this sort of Busby Berkeley version of things.
Well, there you go. There's another version to be made at some point.
Yeah, maybe.
Which
Perhaps
is
I'll do
ironic.
it.
Yeah, well, you wrote the first book, didn't you? I think was yours in the lineage of Pistols books. Yours is the first, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess it is really. Yeah.
I mean,
How's about that then?
do you find it's a bit of a drag the way the Pistols follows you around forever? I mean, it gave you a great start, didn't it? And because it's such a totemic band, it's hard to get round, isn't it?
Did you know what? I think all of the band, no matter what success we've all had individually, nobody's really eclipsed that, not even John, and it must drive him mad. Got to be Johnny Rotten at the age of 67, he must be now. You know, it's a bit like Arthur Askew still doing the same old joke. You know.
Is it so? I mean, this is probably your ultimate victory. You've had the opportunity to actually become a different version of yourself. You know, like we say initially, the elder statesman version. You know, you're not trapped in that past, are you? You don't have to turn up and be a Sex Pistol.
No, no, I just feel I can speak my mind, and if people don't like it, they go, "Well, he was a Sex Pistol," you know. And I kind of just walk out and go, "Yeah, well, there you go." I kind of forgot about that, but yeah.
I mean, what themes you talk about on the album? Is it different themes, or is it all, you know, in the songs?
No,
Do they tackle
there's
different
about 4
ideas?
songs on the album. Initially, I was going to put out my anti-Brexit EP, right? And that's Head on a Stick. There's a song called Magic Carpet Ride, which actually they're going to put out as an interim single, it's kind of like we've all been sort of put on this magic carpet that's whisking the UK off to who knows where, who knows when, for any particular reason, you know. And we kind of going to find out when we get there, really. But it's not something I'm particularly happy about. But it's a good song. It's got a bit of an instant karma kind of vibe to it. There's another song coming out, which is the title track of the album, called Consequences Come In. And I called it that, not because I think I'm going to be suffering any consequences, because we already have, you know, with the whole freedom of movement thing. I mean, you can still go to Europe, but you're not supposed to work, and you can't just go and set up over there and start all over again without going through a whole bunch of rigmarole, you know. And then there's the last song on the album is called This Ship, and it's kind of basically about me questioning the whole idea that these kind of right-wing populist people always say, well, if you don't support us, you know, you're not a true patriot. Probably a bit American way of looking at things. But they've actually kind of undermined my patriotism by the way they've gone about things and shafted people. So that's that. It's a couple of sort of unrequited love songs on the album. There's one about one of my exes that is called Can't Be Myself With You, which kind of says it already, but that's quite a good sort of rocker in a tainted love kind of mode. And I've even got a doo-wop song on it, which is called I Tried to Tell You, which could be construed as a love gone wrong kind of thing, or it also could be construed as, you know, I did try and tell you about all this Brexit malarkey, but would you listen? Would you fuck? You know?
Yeah.
I did all backing vocals. I'm a big fan of that. You know, there's a band that did I Only Have Eyes for You, which was on
Oh yeah.
Malcolm's Jukebox by the Flamingos, and it's really slow. Baps you up, baps you up, 1,000 stars in the sky. Anyway, I kind of rewrote that, and I come out. I try to tell you, baps you up. So I'm just having a laugh for it. I'm just saying to myself, you know, oh, you shouldn't do that kind of thing. You're supposed to be this. Well, that's just the more reason to do it, I think. You know, keep people guessing. I've even done a cover of KD Lang's Constant Craving on the album. And when we was knocking it around, I've always liked the song, and I was trying to learn it. And then you've learnt the chords, so in a quiet moment in the studio, you'd think and go, "Oh, yeah, don't do it." And they go, "What's that?" And you go, "What is this?" And then Chris was playing drums on that, and he's like playing it, and I go, "Hang on, no, just sort of lay into it a bit more." Like what? Well, you know, the Stones doing Harlem Shuffle. Oh yeah, okay. So it's got a bit of that in it, and then Al started playing it, and he's got some sort of, you know, the picking bit out, guitar picking bit out of Ashes to Ashes, and Watrow's playing bass on it. So there's lots of. I always think good music is a rich stew of interesting ingredients.
Well, you got. I mean, without that lineup, there's plenty of interesting ingredients, isn't there?
Yeah, hopefully, you know. I think it's come out all right. So there you go. So that's what I've been doing. That's what I did on my holidays. You know.
So the legendary jukebox from the sex shop is still supplying inspiration after all these decades.
Yeah, but you know, you're a young man and you're listening to music you haven't heard before. You might be acquainted with that kind of thing, but not. one of the records I really liked on that, and the best title ever. It was a band called the Cougars, who are a bit like the Ventures, like a guitar band, and they did a version of Swan Lake. Down, 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 Whammy Bar. But instead of calling it Swan Lake, they called it Saturday Night at the Duck Pond.
Swan Lake Melody's built for that, isn't it? For a twang guitar.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. No, I think there's no such thing as wrong music or right music. There's only good music and bad music. Now, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but it doesn't matter what idiom it is, as long as it's good and meaningful. I mean, the best records I've heard in recent years, not that I go out searching a lot, but and it's probably quite old now, but I really love Hey Ya by Outkast. And then also I kept hearing the song. In fact, I did a version of it, but Happy by Pharrell Williams. It's
yeah. I mean, talent doesn't stop just because everyone gets older, does it? There's still people doing great stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, do you still feel tuned in with the modern pop culture, or do you feel
right? No more or less than I've always done. I've never really been. I mean, if you look over there, there's my not many, but favourite LP vinyl, which I kind of added to a little bit. The more I'm getting into kind of Blue Note, classic bebop jazz, I've always kind of liked singles, really. What's your favourite album? Well, Motown Chartbusters Volume 5. It's that one song from here and that one song from there. So maybe iTunes is quite a good idea for a bloke like me, but then you don't have a tangible piece of plastic to hold in your hand. Yeah, but long gone are the days when the Melody Maker or the Enemy used to come out on a Friday, but actually, if you waited outside the newsagent kiosk at the bottom of Tottenham Court Road, you could get it on a Thursday morning. I used to do that. Sit there in the car.
I remember that.
Delivery.
Yeah.
Don't do that anymore.
Did the recent death of Vivian West make you think back to those days when you worked in the shop and her contribution to the culture and to the whole thing, or was it a closing of a chapter, or how did it affect you?
Was it closing of a chapter? I hadn't really thought of it like that. It didn't make me think back anymore because you're pretty good at it. But blokes like you, all my career, have asked me to think backwards. And it's hard to move on. So it's only an interview or a phone call away having to readdress the past. But I liked Vivian. She was a very erudite, talented, determined lady who didn't take no shit from anybody. And it was sad. I didn't know that she'd been ill. I hadn't fallen out with her, but our paths hadn't crossed for a long while. In fact, the last time I physically saw her was at Malcolm McLaren's funeral, and before it had all kicked off, I was waiting outside for everybody to arrive, and the car pulled up, and I remember a cigarette and the car door opened. It was Vivian. She went, "Oh, Glenn's here. That's nice," and she was really pleased, genuinely pleased to see me. And then a couple of times, a couple of things have been said in the press, and sometimes things come out a bit wrong. And she got her son, Joe Corey, to call me up and say, "I'm really sorry that read like that. I really didn't mean to say it that way." So there you go. And then I sort of said this before, but I don't know, maybe about 8 or 9 years ago, I actually went to Shanghai with Sheila Rock. There was, Sheila Rock, photographer. She was having an exhibition. She asked me to come and play a few songs. And I arrived in Shanghai, I don't know, 5:30 in the morning. The airport's a long way from the town. Had a couple of cups of coffee. By the time I got to the town, I was probably a little bit too caffeined up. And I thought, I'm not going to sleep now. I'll go for a walk. Oh, I better make sure there's some landmark so I don't get lost. Look round, next to the hotel, there's a Vivian Westwood flagship store, right, in Shanghai. Yeah, now considering I used to work for them when it was all hand to mouth, and she would say to me, "Glenn, I am vegetarian, but if you go and get chicken and chips from that place over the road in the box. Keep the box afterwards. What for? She said, well, I'll take the bones home and I'll boil them up and then I'll use them to sew onto T-shirts as a slogan. You know, it was that hand to mouth back then. And then she's got a flagship store. And if you go around the world, which I'm fortunate enough to do, there's a Vivian West flagship store. And you know, she probably had a team of people behind her, but they picked up on her because she was good and she did it all on her own terms. And you can't knock that, you know. That's why people like Bowie and all that was so great. It's like lots of us can be lucky enough and fortunate enough to get one record away, but to sustain it over many, many years, it's hard work and it takes a lot of application, you know. And I think I'm a long way from that, but I've kept doing it anyway. You know, people say, oh, well, you know, what you like singing? Well, not very good, but I'm going to do it anyway, so you better get used to it.
I think also with Bowie, it's that thing you have a team around you. And probably like the Pistols were originally, it's not just the band. There's other people contributing into the pool, which kind of helps, doesn't it, I think?
Yeah, and I think Bowie was probably quite good at picking and choosing the right people to contribute to the pool. You know, he could pick and choose. We was fortunate with the Pistols. We had the right load of people, the right kind of forward-looking people around us when everything was on the cusp of some kind of change. So that was kind of cool. I've kind of been lacking that a little bit, and you know that's kind of why bands are good. You know, because you play to each other's strengths and argue. But if you're a kind of a solo artist, which I've kind of see myself as my version of Ray Davis or Weller or something like that. But you know, you need a band,
But
which
this
I've
is
got.
this.
But then you have to be able to afford to have a band keep going.
Yeah,
So
that's the hard bit.
economics as well, you know.
But this is
But
what.
you know, things are looking all right. But
Yeah,
hopefully, this record will make a few more waves, and I can just keep doing it. You
I
know, I
think
mean,
this is
I saw
what.
Iggy
Yeah,
Pop years ago, and he was going how lucky he was that every couple of years he gets to make a new record. You know, that's fantastic. You know.
mm. Well, he's kind of curious, isn't he? Because he's far more iconic than his records are.
Yeah, but I think he's done all right in the long run. You know.
No, he's done very well. I mean, he's probably the most famous rock star in the world without any proper hit records.
Well, there you go. But then also think all the things that people have really lasted, the people who in the first place never kind of kowtowed and you know swallowed the company line, whatever that is, and have stuck out like a sore thumb. And I think in the long run, people appreciate that, and then you get fans who stick with you who are for real and not, for the want of a better word, flibbity gibbets. You know. Um, so there you go.
Do you see what you do is over the years, almost like sculpture, you just hone down your rock and roll to your idea of a perfection.
Maybe I think when I write a song, I in my mind I've got this sort of classic rock kind of rock pop song. I'll write 3.5 minute pop rock songs, and hopefully sometimes the lyrics are of some kind of consequence. I don't know. I just do what I've always done and pick something up along the way, but then colour it with the people I'm lucky enough to attract. I mean, you don't ask El Slick to play on your record for next to nothing. You know, you promise them the earth, and they end up, if they're lucky, with a cappuccino and a sticky bun, but they still do it anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
You, you don't get them to play on it without giving them room to manoeuvre to do their thing. You know,
Mm.
I like having a really simple song. Songs about this. It's kind of got this riff in it there. Play the riff. Then it's up for grabs. You know, that's what gives it the colour. But I did say to Earl once, he said, well, I don't know what kind of solo I should do on this one. I said, well, I suggest you do a good one because it's going to have your name on the record. And if you don't play a good one, you're the one who look like a cunt, and not me. He's like,
When I last saw you play live, and he was playing with you, it's in Manchester actually, Rebellion, a couple of years ago, the venue. And he's having the time of his life. And I was thinking, that's amazing. This guy spent most of his life playing in stadiums, but he's just as happy playing in a bar gig.
yeah, he likes
That was a
playing.
great gig. Yeah, yeah.
And I think we get on quite well. I mean, the only drag is Earl lives upstate New York and I live in London, and it's just hard. I keep going on economically, but that's one of the realities of getting to work with the people you kind of want to work with. But on the other hand, when I'm playing live, on the other hand, I've got Neil Whitmore, Neil X is playing with me, and he's kind of equally good, but in a different way,
Mm.
So, it's
Yeah,
kind of better BVs and being more of a band member, and Neil's more.
a star guitar player. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it when you put a band together, is it just a wish list just running through the little black book, or is it just people you kind of know anyway?
It's just people who are around and you've been hanging out with.
Mm.
I think I've got enough songs for an album now. Fancy coming out with us out on this?
Mm.
Yeah, why not? So if they're around, that's it. I mean, I got What Right on it because I went to see the opening of the Clash exhibition at the Barbican. I mean, it's a couple of years just before, not long before lockdown happened, when I started recording the bulk of the material, but hadn't necessarily finished all the songs, and I wrote a couple more. But I know What Right. Then there was a crowd of us talking. And he come, "Oh, Glenn, how you doing?" I said, "What are you up to tomorrow?" He said, "Well, I don't know, really." I said, "I would have thought you'd been busy." And he said, "Well, lots of people think that, but they don't call me because I think I'm busy." I said,
Yeah.
"Well, I'm going in the studio. Do you want to come and play some bass with me?" And he said, "I'd love to." And that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's an amazing bass player.
Yeah.
Are his hands as big as they look when you're watching him play?
I
He
don't
seems to have
think
like giant hands
they're
about that
that
big.
close. I do know when, if you're tuning up and you're trying to get a bass sound in the control room, I'll just play us an A something, Norman. And he goes like, boom. And it's like every note that he plays
Counts.
is
Yeah.
plucked. No, it's plucked from his very inner tortured soul. It's like, for fuck's sake, just play a fucking A.
So,
It's cool, and that all adds to his playing. I like that.
yeah, anything he plays on, it drives it, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the plans are you're going to tour this album and
We got a few
see where it
gigs.
takes you.
I've got a couple of gigs coming up at the end of this week, probably before this article comes out. I've got this Lust for Life tour thing I'm doing, and then I'm off with Blondie. But the album comes out right at the end of April, so I've got all May free. So I'll be trying to set some things up there. I go back out with Blondie again till the end of June. In fact, the last gig's that one in Crystal Palace with Iggy and Generation Sex supporting us. and and then the world's my oyster, So if the record does a bit, hopefully I'll be out and about playing a lot more. It's what I'd like to be doing. We'll
So
see.
that Crystal Palace is 3/4 of the Pistols, isn't it?
Yeah.
In the same backstage, isn't it? Yeah.
Do you know what? I think we're really going to have a really good cup of tea together.
Yeah, but it's good to know that you three all get on, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a shame all four of us don't get on, but I hardly say it as my fault.
Well, I guess the other quarter is a difficult person, so that's just which was the magic at one time, wasn't it?